Hello, we are Group 7. It's Soledad and Edwin.
So today we are going to be talking about the rape of Nanking, or also known as the rape of Nanjing. A little background information. Nanking back then was the capital of nationalist China. It was also known as Hell on Earth. This was an episode of mass murder and mass rape, and it was just where many people died, and it was just a whole mess that really affected the whole history. It started when in December of 1937, the Japanese Imperial Army, commanded by General Matusi Iwane, marched into China's capital city of Nanking and murdered at least 300,000 out of the 6,000 civilians and soldiers in the city. This lasted for 6 weeks from about mid-December 1937 through the beginning of February 1938, representing the worst atrocity during the World War II era. Okay, so Chinese soldiers that surrendered were transported to POW's concentration camps that were located outside of Nanking. This was when the mass bloodshed was created. Some things that they would use were citywide burnings, stabbings, drownings, strangulation, rapes, thieves, and mass property destruction. By the time the Japanese were done with the killing spree, an estimate of 140,000 were killed, 300,000 were slaughtered, and about 20,000 women were killed and raped. This also included little girls. To begin with, soldiers were arrested and rounded up. They were taken to the outside of the city and were massacred. In most cases, the captives were either shot by machine guns, and at times they were even tied up and set on fire alive. When it came to the females, they were raped by Japanese soldiers throughout the day and were brutally killed after. The Japanese soldiers would rape little girls of 10 years and less of age. No woman was safe regardless age, height, color, if you were pregnant or not. Even the nuns weren't safe at all. Pregnant women would be cut open and they would have their babies ripped out of them. In other cases, the father of the family was forced to rape their own daughters. Sons were forced to rape mothers, and brothers were forced to rape their sisters while the whole family watched. For those who refused to do so, they were instantly killed on the spot. This all happened due to the fact that Chinese soldiers had a weak and unorganized and even poorly led army. The Japanese soldiers would set fire to the forests, homes, and buildings in their path. To this day, some people deny the events or play down the events that happened. So people deny everything that happened, even though there is evidence of what really did happen. So how long had China and Japan been at war before the capture of Nanking? In the past 45 years, China, as long as the other countries that were with Japan, they had let many crimes and assaults from Japan be forgotten, or they were tucked under the carpet. The military invasion of Nanking was followed by a tough battle in the beginning of the summer of 1937. China forced a stiff resistance against the Japanese army. This upset the Japanese and dragged the battle through the summer until late fall. This made Japan really infuriated, and they wanted revenge, and that was to follow at Nanking.
Why did the genocide occur? The rape of Nanking was motivated by uncontrollable desire for aggression, expansion, and imperialism. The Chinese government standing down also gave the Japanese power to do so as they saw fit. What role did the Japanese culture play in provoking the genocide? The Japanese entered the city on December 13, 1937, with orders to kill all captives or anyone that possessed a threat. This included 90,000 soldiers that surrendered. We see the role of the Japanese culture play out because the Japanese culture To surrender was an unthinkable act of cowardice and the ultimate violation of military code. These concepts were drilled into them from childhood and continued on throughout life, as we can see from their actions. They also looked upon the Chinese with utter contempt, viewing them as unworthy of life and less than a human. What roles did the foreigners play in the Nanking during the Japanese-controlled city? A group of approximately 20 Americans and Europeans established a safe zone that flew Red Crosses to let the Chinese know. In many occasions, these people would personally intervene to stop and save the lives of Chinese and stop the raping of women and young girls. About 30,000 Chinese citizens took refuge in these safe zones. Were the Japanese ever held accountable for their actions in Nanking? Japanese Class A war criminals were tried by the International Military Tribunal for the Far East. Out of 80 Class A war criminals, only 28 were brought to trial. 7 were sentenced to death, including the commander, General Matsui Wayne, and his lieutenant. 16 were sentenced to life in prison. 2 were sentenced to 7 and 20 years in prison. 2 passed away during trial. 1 was sent to a psychiatric ward when he had a mental breakdown during the trial and was later released in 1948, a free man. On this slide, you see a couple more pictures, 2 from the massacre, and the others are from the Memorial Hall of Victims in Nanjing Massacre by Japanese invaders, located in Nanjing, China. Here is our works cited page. Thank you for watching.